4.4. Quality Management System and its Processes. 4.4.1. The organization shall establish, implement, maintain and continually improve a quality management system, including the processes needed and their interactions, in accordance with the requirements of this international standard. The organization shall determine the processes needed for the quality management system and their application throughout the organization, and shall a. Determine the inputs required and the outputs expected from these processes. b. Determine the sequence and interaction of these processes. c. Determine and apply the criteria and methods, including monitoring, measurements, and related performance indicators, needed to ensure the effective operation and control of these processes. d. Determine the resources needed for these processes and ensure their availability. e. Assign the responsibilities and authorities for these processes. f. Address the risks and opportunities as determined in accordance with the requirements of 6.1. g. Evaluate these processes and implement any changes needed to ensure that these processes achieve their intended results. h. Improve the processes and the quality management system. 4.4.2. To the extent necessary, the organization shall a. Maintain documented information to support the operation of its processes. b. Retain documented information to have confidence that the processes are being carried out as planned. In 4.4, Quality Management System and its Processes. Organizations are required to establish, implement, and maintain a quality management system and its processes, and also take steps to continually improve this system. It's no secret by now that ISO 9001 is big on a process approach to quality management, and Clause 4.4, Quality Management System and its Processes, is basically saying that now that the organization has a firm understanding of their organizational context, and has determined the scope of its QMS, it must now develop the appropriate processes to support that system and ensure it performs effectively. So essentially, management must determine what processes are needed to meet organizational, customer, interested parties, and legal requirements in a continuous and efficient manner. In order to accomplish this effectively and meet the requirements of the ISO 9001-2015 standard, organizations must determine the inputs that are needed, and outputs that can be expected, as well as the sequence and interactions of applicable processes. The first step in meeting this requirement again goes back to the first three sections of Clause 4, understanding the context of the organization, its internal and external issues, interested parties, and determining the scope of the QMS, which in turn provide inputs for the remaining processes needed to support the QMS, and ensure that the desired outputs will be produced. Many of the processes developed, if they have not already been implemented, will produce outputs, which then become inputs to various other processes. Understanding this relationship is essential to developing processes that interact sequentially or in conjunction with one another, without contradicting. Process mapping is an effective way to ensure that processes are set up in this way. Organizations must determine and apply criteria and methods required to ensure the effective operation and control of those processes. What benchmark is to be used to ensure that processes are performing as expected? In order to monitor and measure the effectiveness of a process, or anything else for that matter, criteria must be established to measure against. What resources are needed? And what is the availability of those resources to ensure processes are implemented effectively? What raw materials, supplies, or information will be required? And are they readily available to adequately implement the processes? Responsibilities and authorities must be assigned for each particular process so that there is no question as to who is responsible for the implementation and communication of the process and its intended outcome. It's essential to ensure that the quality management systems and its processes are regularly evaluated for change and improvement opportunities, and that those changes and improvements are adequately implemented. Along with change and improvements, processes must be evaluated for risk and opportunity to ensure that possible risks are adequately mitigated, and opportunities are identified and taken advantage of, for the benefit of organizational growth and improvement. In addition, organizations are required to develop and retain documented information in order to support the operation of its process, and confirm that processes are being implemented effectively. It's up to the organization to determine the type and to what extent this documentation will be maintained. The goal here is to make sure that the process can be understood and carried out in an effective way by the people performing the work, and that there is a way to provide evidence of the desired result. So, this concludes Chapter 4 on Context of the Organization, which outlines the importance of understanding the internal and external issues, as well as interested parties that have a direct effect on the organization, so that management can have a better understanding of the risks and opportunities that lie ahead, as well as provide context when determining the scope of the quality management system and its processes.